Welcome back to the book of Judges. Last week in Judges we looked at the house of Micah and his failure overall, as well as the priest from Bethlehem, Judah, and the tribe of Dan, who forsook the plan of God to go their own way. Today we'll start in, in Judges 19 with the shame and immorality of the day. Remember the key verse to the book of Judges. In those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did that which was right in their own eyes. And it got to the point to where things that were obvious sin, as recorded in the Bible, were no longer obvious in the society that they lived in. Well, that looks like our day and time, doesn't it? Things that are absolute sin, today people overlook it as just their choice, their way of life. And we see that here with a Levite, a man who should have been in the priesthood, and his concubine, in Judges chapter 19, 1 through chapter 20, verse 7. And what we have in this story here is that the concubine left the Levite and returned back to Bethlehem, where apparently she was from. And the Levite didn't like that idea, but he hoped to win her back. So he chases after her. Well, along this chase here, he runs across the Levite and the concubine's father. And strangely enough, they become friends. They sit down there at a party, and their own little party, and end up drinking and carousing throughout the night. And text just coming in. Sorry about that. Let me turn here to the book of Judges. So it came to pass in those days there was no king in Israel. This is 19:1, as also found in 21:25. Then it goes on to say, then there was a certain Levite sojourning on the side of Mount Ephraim, who took to him a concubine out of Bethlehem, Judah. And his concubine played the whore against him, and went away from him into her father's house to Bethlehem, Judah, and was there for 4 whole months. So here his concubine plays the whore against him, the scripture tells us. So she was unfaithful to him, left him, he chased after her, verse 3, and her husband arose and went after her to speak friendly unto her, and to bring her again, having his servant with him and a couple of asses, and she brought him into her father's house, and when the father of the damsel saw him, he rejoiced to meet him. And his father-in-law, the damsel's father, retained him, and he abode with him 3 days, so they did eat and drink and lodge there. It came to pass on the 4th day, when they arose early in the morning, that he rose up to depart. And the damsel's father said unto his son-in-law, comfort thine heart with a morsel of bread, and afterward go your way. When they sat down and did eat and drink, both of them together. For the damsel's father had said to him, be content, I pray thee, and tarry all night, and let thine heart be merry. So they get drunk again. Verse 7, when the man rose up to depart, his father-in-law urged him, therefore he lodged there again. And he rose early in the morning on the 5th day to depart. And the damsel's father said, comfort thine heart, I pray thee. And they tarried until afternoon, and they did eat both of them. Verse 9, and when the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine, and his servant, his father-in-law, the damsel's father, said to him, behold, now the day draws toward evening. I pray you, tarry all night. Behold, the day groweth to an end. Lodge here, that thine heart may be merry, and tomorrow get you early on your way, that thou mayest go home. But the man would not tarry that night, so finally he said, I have to go, and came over against Jebus, which is Jerusalem, and there with him 2 asses saddled, his concubine also with him. And when they went by Jebus, the day was far spent, and the servant said to his master, come, I pray thee, and let us turn in this city of the Jebusites and lodge there. So he finally convinced her to go, And there in verse 12 of chapter 19 says, the master said to him, we will not turn again hither into the city of a stranger that is not of the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah. So here in his moral high road, this Levite takes his concubine and heads out, but he's too proud to stay with anybody. He has to stay with another Jew. So he said, we'll go over to Gibeah. And when he said to him, his servant, come, and let's draw near to one of these places to lodge all night in Gibeah or in Ramah. So they ran across this old man. Well, verse 14, and they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down upon them when they were by Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. And they turned aside thither to go in and to lodge in Gibeah. And when he went in, he sat him down in the street of the city, for there was no man that took them to his house to lodging. And behold, there came an old man from his work out of the field, which also of Mount Ephraim, and he sojourned in Gibeah. But the men of the place were Benjamites. Now, that's a key name there, Benjamites, from the tribe of Benjamin, Saul's tribe, that is about to pretty much be wiped out because of their sin. But the house ends up being surrounded by perverts who demanded the old man send out the Levite. And the old man said, well, you can have my daughter in place of the Levite. Now, I just think that's what an abomination that is. And he said in verse 18, we're passing Bethlehem, Judah, toward the Mount of Ephraim. From thence am I, and I went out to Bethlehem, Judah, but I'm now going to the house of the Lord, L-O-R-D, capital L-O-R-D. I'm going to Jehovah. Verse 19, actually, let me skip on down here to verse 22. Now, as they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, B-E-L-I-A-L, Belial, verse 22. These are known sinners, homosexuals, who decided they wanted this Levite. It says that they were making their hearts merry. Behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, beset the house round about, and beat at the door, and spake to the master of the house, the old man, saying, bring forth the man that came into thy house, that we may know him. And that's, know him means to physically, to have sex. And so the man, the master of the house, went out unto them and said, nay, my brethren, now I pray you, do not so wickedly, saying that this man has come to my house. Do not this folly. Behold, here is my daughter, a maiden, and his concubine. And what an abomination here. Can you imagine somebody coming to your house and then you're surrounded by all these people and you offer up your own daughter in his place? This is moral high ground, according to this old man. Verse 25, but the men would not hearken to him, so the man took his concubine and brought her forth unto them. The man took his concubine and brought her forth unto them, and they knew her and abused her all the night until the morning, and when the day began to spring, they let her go. So this Levite who's been chasing his concubine 4 months, stays almost a week at his father's house, finally comes home after all these drunken nights on his way home, too morally good to stay with people that are not Jews, so he makes his way to this man from Gibeah, who was an Ephraimite. And when the house was surrounded, he said, well, you can have my concubine. Save myself, you can have my concubine. And they raped her and abused her. And in verse 26, what a sad verse. It says, then came the woman in the dawning of the morning and fell down at the door of the man's house where the Lord was till it was light. And her Lord rose up in the morning and opened the door of the house and went out to go his way. And behold, the woman, his concubine, was fallen down at the door of the house, and her hands were upon the threshold. And he said to her, up, and let us be going. This woman had been physically abused all night long, raped by who knows what, how many, and crawls to the door of the house. Got to be messed up. And his words to her, get up, it's time to go. It says, but none answered. Well, of course not, she's dead. Then the man took her upon an ass, And the man rose up and got him into his place. And now here's the moral high ground for this guy. They just abused his concubine, raped her because he gave her to them. And his only words were, get up, let's go. But she was dead. So now he said, what am I going to do? So he puts her on his donkey, heads out, took a knife, laid hold on the concubine, and divided her together with her bones into 12 pieces, and sent her in all the coasts of Israel. So she cuts her up into 12 pieces and sends a piece of her body throughout to each one of the tribes of Israel, because he's disgusted that they killed her, and he's been offended. Verse 30, and it was so that all they saw it, there was no such deed done nor seen from the day the children of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt unto this day. Consider of it, take advice, and speak your mind. So what a sad, sad commentary. Well, the children of Israel were upset about this because their moral are not God's morals anyway, doing things which is right in their own eyes. And the congregation was gathered together as one man from Dan even unto Beersheba in the land of Gilead unto the Lord at Mizpah. And the chief of all the people, even of all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves into the assembly of the people of God. 400,000 footmen that drew sword. So they decided to build up an army to go after these guys. And if you remember back in Genesis 19, the story of Lot, kind of similar as to what took place. The two messengers that went to Sodom and even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them and bowed himself with his face toward the ground. Before they laid down the men of the city, even the men of Sodom compassed the house round about, both old and young, and all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters, which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and you do to them as good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing. For therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. I mean, again, Lot is so far away from God. If the Bible did not clearly say that it vexed Lot's righteous soul, you would definitely conclude this man is not a believer in any way whatsoever. Well, the Levites here and the perverts, concubine was delivered to them, raped and killed. Tribes of Israel, in their own mind and form of righteousness, decide they're going to get vengeance on the tribe of Benjamin or the sons of Belial for what they did. And so they get 400,000 troops assembled at Mizpah, and they demand now that justice be done. Well, this causes problems in Israel because of, again, it's their moral attitude that they have, or immoral attitude they have. Reason for this division now, the schism in Israel, is that the 400,000 troops were from 11 tribes, because the tribe of Benjamin was the offending tribe. But they go to the Benjamites and said, the sons of Belial, who are Benjamites, are just a part of your tribe, so we're not out to get you, we just want the sons of Belial. Well, the Benjamites said, no, we're not turning them over to you. And so they refused, and war breaks out. So 11 tribes against the tribe of Benjamin. The results of that, well, 3 days battle, Benjamin is defeated. Death rate, 40,000 from 11 tribes. So the Benjamites put up quite a fight. 25,000 from the tribe of Benjamin. Now remember, Benjamin's only one tribe, so that's a large percentage of the Benjamites. Survivors, 600 Benjamite soldiers survived. All right. So all the people, now only 600 left. The rest of them all wiped out. Well, 600 men, no women, there's no genealogy going to follow that then. Right? So they got to do something. So Israel provided wives for the 600 lest Benjamin disappeared. I said, we got to do something. But we can't give them our women. Jabesh Gilead, that's misspelled. That should be Jabesh Gilead. But so we can't give them. So what are we going to do? They said, well, did any of our people not go and fight? I said, well, there was, Jabesh Gilead. They decided not to go against them. And so they said, okay, wipe them out, except for the women. How many women are left out of that? Well, I got 400. All right, so they got 600 Benjamites, need 600 wives, but they only have 400. And then one of the strangest passages, it's just, again, the abomination of man and how that they'll do that which is right in their own eyes despite what God's wanted. In chapter 21, it says in verse 13, let me go back to verse 12, because it says, and they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins that had known no man by lying with any male. And they brought them into the camp to Shiloh, which is the land of Canaan. So, again, just what I said before in that. Now, verse 13, it says, and the whole congregation sent out to speak to the children of Benjamin that were in the rock of Rimmon, and to call peaceably unto them. And Benjamin came again at that time, and they gave them wives which had saved the life of the women of Jabesh Gilead, and yet so they sufficed them not. Or it wasn't enough. Gave them 400, needed 600. So what are we going to do? Well, verse 15, the people repented them from Benjamin, because the Lord had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said, how shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? So what are we going to do? We've killed them all. And they don't have any wives, so the tribe's going to decrease significantly. Verse 18 says, howbeit we may not give them wives of our daughters. For the children of Israel have sworn, saying, cursed be he that giveth a wife to Benjamin. So we cannot give them any more wives. And the wives have to be Jewish, so what are we going to do? There's no women left. And so they said, well, we promised. Then they said, well, here's a solution. We can't give them our daughters. I mean, it's obvious. We made a vow. Verse 19, then they said, behold, there's a feast of the Lord in Shiloh. Remember, that's where the tabernacle is at. Yearly in the place which is on the north side of Bethel, on the east side of the highway that goeth up from Bethel to Shechem and to the south of Lebanon. Therefore they command the children of Benjamin, saying, go and lie in wait in the vineyards, and see, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in dances, then come you out of the vineyards, and catch you every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and go to land of Benjamin. So, wait a minute, what are they saying? So, they got this party going on, and we'll let our daughters out there dance. Now, we cannot give our daughters to them. We promised, we made a vow. We can't break that vow when we're morally upright people. And so, let's do this. Let's let our daughters dance around out there. And the 200 Benjamites that don't have wives, well, they can hide in the woods. It says, verse 21, and see, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in dances, then come you out of the vineyards, and catch you every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and then go back to Benjamin. I mean, do you get that? I mean, how foolish a statement these things are, and people think that they're morally right in all that they're doing. It says we can't give them our daughters, but if we turn our backs and they steal our daughters, then hey, that's not on us anymore. And they can take 200 of them and go back, and now all 600 Benjamites will have wives. In verse 22, and it shall be when their fathers or their brethren come unto us to complain, that we will say unto them, will be favor unto them for our sakes, because we reserve not to each man his wife in the war, for you did not give it unto them at this time, that you should be guilty. And the children of Benjamin did so, and took them wives, and according to the number of them that danced, whom they caught. And they went and returned unto their inheritance, and prepared the cities, and dwelt in them. And the children of Israel departed thence at that time, every man to his tribe and to his family. And they went out from thence, every man to his inheritance. And verse 25. In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. What a tremendously foolish situation. I mean, here's a Levite. His concubine runs off. Wife, concubine, same thing when it comes down to it. Went to his father-in-law's house. Gets her back. Gives her over to a bunch of perverts. And when they abuse her, she crawls, makes her way back to the door, puts her hand on the threshold of the door, and dies. And his response is, "Let's get up and go. What's the matter with you?" And found out she's dead. Then in his righteous indignation, cuts her up into 12 pieces, sends each piece to the tribe of Israel. 11 tribes go against Benjamin. Benjamin's not going to turn over the sons of Belial. And so they wipe them out except for 600 men. And then they find one tribe that didn't, one city didn't go. And they take 400. And then they, what an abomination. They said, we can't give the other 200, but let's let them dance. And I'm sure when they made this decision, they didn't inform all the people of Israel, just their own family. So make sure your daughter don't go, but if somebody else's go, hey, it's not our problem. And then when they're kidnapped and taken, then they tell the men, well, it's kind of your fault. You wiped out the Benjamites. If you hadn't wiped them out, this wouldn't have happened. And so, just basically, you just need to get over it. And that's morality. In the days and times when people do that which is right in their own eyes. And listen, we are living in those days and times, aren't we? When people are doing that which is right in their own eyes. All right, this concludes the book of Judges.